Okay.
Meeting is now in session. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Greg, roll call.
Campbell,
Here.
Garbutt,
Here.
Mays, Barnwell,
Here.
Bobby. Here. Huntsman.
Here. All right, we are missing Councilmember Mays. Just prior to this meeting, he did reach out to me and let me know that he was going to be running a few minutes late. So I guess we can, do we do anything?
There he is.
There he is. So we do nothing. All right. Let me grab something. All right, got it. Welcome, Mike. Mike has joined the meeting. Okay, so we've got quite a few things on the meeting agenda tonight. It does look like it might be a marathon tonight, guys. But first and foremost, we're going to start with public comment. Mr. King-Solver, welcome.
Thank you.
And you can sit or you can come. Either way, I'll after you.
Well, if you remember, I was here beginning of spring complaining about my road.
Yes?
Nobody never done nothing about it, except you guys put some patches on it, made it 10 times worse than what it was.
Okay.
And I told you if you didn't get it fixed, I was going to send you a bill for me having to keep the road mowed and weeded and stuff. And I brought you a bill because I didn't want you to think I was a liar. And now my question is, am I going to get paid for this? And I want an audit answer.
I know without a doubt that we actually did go out and inspect the road. I know that we did some surfacing on it, which did absolutely
It was a joke.
happen.
It was a joke.
Okay. You may think it was a joke. We did what we were supposed to do. We are not responsible for this bill.
Okay,
We can
that's
take
fine.
a look at it. But we do maintain our roads.
And I doubt that. But anyways, so if that's the case, that's fine. So I'm going to tell the people that's listening, when you guys send people to mow their yards and charge them for them, I'm going to tell them not to pay you guys because it's the same difference.
Okay.
Y'all can kiss my ass and go to hell.
Have a good day. All right. Travis, I think you're here for another reason, so we'll get to you in just a moment. Let's see. So actually, we want to go ahead and do that conversation first so that we don't take more time. So we are going to work around on the agenda tonight. One of the things that we do want to discuss is, I've got to find it on the agenda what I put. Where's Travis's? Which one is it?
I don't think it's even listed. I just had it under mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do, why don't you lead us in that conversation?
Sure. So we had a question come up about sanitary sewer laterals and how those are managed, and how we do it compared to how others do it. So as far as the Village of Georgetown, the homeowner is responsible for the entire length of the sewer lateral to the main, and that includes under roadways, sidewalks. So we Travis reached out to other villages and we gathered their policies, so I'll just go through those real quick. West Union, the village has responsibility for laterals under the roadway. If there's no accessible clean out outside the home, the homeowner is responsible for the lateral all the way under the road. So they require a clean out, but West Union does take responsibility under the roadway. If there's no clean out, then they're still responsible to be able to farm. City of Hillsborough, the homeowner is responsible for the entire length to the center of the road, including under roadways and sidewalks. Williamsburg, homeowner is responsible for the entire length of the lateral, including what's underneath the road and sidewalks. Maysville, the homeowner is responsible for the entire length, including what's underneath roadways and sidewalks. Mount Orb, the homeowner is responsible for the entire length, including under roadways and sidewalks. Village of Blanchester, The village is responsible for laterals under the roadway only for repair. So if there's blockages, then that's the responsibility of the homeowner regardless of location. The homeowner is required to have a clean out at the right-of-way line. So that there's an access point for the village to get into. Otherwise, you'd have to get individual easements for us to be able to work on private property. So you have to have the clean out there at the right-of-way line so that so it can be proven that it's clear to that point, and then the village of Manchester would take over for repair, but not blockages. And then the village of Greenfield, homeowner is responsible for the entire length of the lateral, including under the roadways and sidewalks. So that's what we gathered. Now, Claremont County, they're a larger system, much larger, a lot more employees. They do take responsibility from the right of way, but the property owner is required to have have a clean out at that right of way line, and that is under the expense of the property owner. So if there is no clean out, then the property owner is responsible all the way to the main. So that's far enough and above the norm. Generally, the larger systems, you have the manpower to manage that, then it would go towards the responsibility at the right of way. I will point out that the instance where this kind of brought the question on, that was able to be fixed with a water jetter. So there wasn't any requirement to tear up the roadway. And I think that's pretty rare. I think 9 times out of 10, that jetter's going to take care of the problem. So I think it's something that council should really consider before making a change, because that does add more liability to the village and responsibility to our small crew. I think it works the way it is now. It's very rare that there would be a requirement to cut into the roadway. But I think if we were to implement a system, we would have to have that lateral installed by the customer at the right of way, so that there would be an access point where they could show the village that it's cleared that point, and then it would be provable that it could go past that. But to be honest, it would be my preference and my recommendation that it stays the way it is. Travis is certainly here to answer questions.
So does everybody kind of I know last month at the meeting we said this is something that we want to do some homework on and discuss. Does everyone here at the table understand kind of what we're looking into or what you guys wanted to discuss? So there was there was someone, this happened a few times in the general public, that had a clog or whatever you want to call it in their pipe, and it was debatable whether it was under the road or on the other, where it was in the pipe, because they had done as far as they could do. And so discussion was about should the village be responsible for essentially digging up the road to clean that pipe out, or should the homeowner, as it currently stands, it's the homeowner's responsibility. In this one particular case, Travis was able to help the client find a service to go in there and actually jet the pipe out, and it worked without anybody having to debate who pays for the cost of tearing up the road. But just in general, you guys wanted to discuss this policy, so he's
And
kind of...
I would add that even when this person came out, he didn't initially bring his water jetter, and he used a snake. And he hit the same clog, and he thought that was at the main, so he called in Travis. Travis was on his way in. He said, "Go ahead and go back and get your jetter." But Travis was coming in to be ready in case it was our main issue. But once he got the jetter, he was able to get it out.
So can we do just simple changes to that legislation where, once the customer has went to the point of, if they couldn't get it with an auger and they couldn't get it with a jetter, and they went ahead and installed a clean out at the road, could we then put it on the table that the village cover anything from that point under the road?
That is an option, yes.
Because I think that that's a lot of liability on the homeowners too. I mean, I can't imagine my line's glowing up underneath the main road out there by the courthouse and having to dig all that up and replace all that. I just can't imagine as a homeowner being able to physically afford a company to come in, cut roads up, put it back to specs. That would be a tremendous amount of money.
So, Travis, maybe you can hit on this. The way it is now, there is a list of qualified contractors that can do that, right? Like a small list, if you
Not
needed it.
not necessarily a list that we have, it's just most companies that do that in this area are going to be your licensed plumbers.
Okay.
And we've had several that have reached out to us in the past that have said, hey, you know, what's your requirements on putting the road back? And it's, hey, you put it back just the way that it was.
Now, is
So
that
it-
something you inspect the
Yes.
whole process through?
Yes. We inspect the laterals anyways. Anytime there's a repair, they normally have to call us, and then we would go out and we would inspect that lateral, the repair, and then we would obviously inspect the roadway and make sure that they bring it back the way that it's supposed to be brought back to. So, most people will bring it back in concrete, rather than, because if it happens in the winter, you know, the company, I guess I should say, would normally just have a concrete truck come in if it's that much and do it that way.
Well, we do have a list of electricians back there, and we could probably, I think it might be a good idea to create a list of people who have jetters that could provide that assistance.
Right,
We
but
can
once
still-
it reaches that point and they've jetted it and there's more of an issue, that's what I'm getting at. If they went through those steps like we talked, to get a jetter and so on and so forth, is there that many that we're gonna run into in the future that say we have to tear the street up? And then I'd say, you know, we've got employees like you that are educated in tearing that out and fixing it. We've got the equipment as the village to do that with, as opposed to a homeowner having to pay a licensed plumber and a company that does roadways to come out and do that.
You know, we could still kick around, you know, put on there something about everything as an individual base as it comes up, you know. It wouldn't be a broad thing that we're gonna do it every time, but like you said, if it's a stretch that's clear across the road versus right at the edge of the road, I think everything can be, you know, talked about each case and, you know, see what we can do per, you know, incident. Because like you said, there's not that many of them.
Right. That's why I say I would almost rather have a blanket to where once they reach the expectations of Travis and the village administrator, as far as what they could do aside from tearing that out, then I'd say that it should fall on the town to cut that street up and replace that from there to
Or like we had talked, possibly, like we do the sidewalks. Remember, that was a, I don't know, an idea of paying a percentage, like we do 50/50 or something like that.
Is the concern of the village, is it the financial cost or is it the manpower issue? What's the more pressing, why, if we don't want to change the legislation, what is our reasoning?
Well, I think the first concern would be that we would have to require that cutout at the property, at the right of way line. But then, yes, I think the smaller systems are generally gonna be the ones who require the property owner to maintain that to the main. Because when that happens, it's gonna be an emergency for the property owner, where we may be working on other emergencies in the right of way. We just don't have manpower to drop everything when that occurs.
Do you guys have
Even like Maysville, you know, they have more employees than we do.
Yeah, just adding to that, there's only three, I mean, we're just three guys, and I got now, the amount of paperwork and reporting that I have to do, I've got about a week and a half that I have to spend with this. So I mean, that gives me 2.5 weeks for everything else, and then that's 2 other guys. So,
do you guys have the camera systems where you can, you know, have the sense of we have?
I just feel like you go outsourcing to an outside company, you're gonna find that even if the village paid half, it would cost us the same as if we was to do it ourselves in-house. I really do. I believe 100% it would cost us as much, if not more. And I don't think it's that often that we run into that problem. I would like to think we don't. I mean, and again, if we kept the expectations high to the point of where, you know, they jetter it, they augumed it, they've got it clean out there, we can verify. we've got the equipment, and we've got the we might be short a little bit on manpower, I get you there. But I mean, I just think that we could understand as a village, you know, Travis and them ain't gonna be able to hit this mark this week because they had to fix this line over here and repair the street. But I think that's not that often that it's gonna happen, I don't believe, I guess we could have an earthquake and everybody's line bust, but then we'd be all up the creek anyways, right? So, I just don't think it's that many.
If it's not that many and just like this one that kind of got ironed out as it unfolded, is it possible to make it more discretionary to our administrator or?
The only reason why I don't like that is because I've operated in this village in the past as a business owner, and when there were different ones in the positions that's up here today, they weren't always so friendly, and if you run into a council that ain't so friendly to a certain person, they might waver that other way, and I'm not saying that anybody on here would do that, but I'm saying it's happened in the past, and that's what would concern me.
So what do you guys think?
How often, Travis, do you get those kind of calls in terms of?
Severe blockages.
Right. Homeowner
Quite
issue.
often.
Right.
I mean, I can't, if I had to average it, I'd say the office hears more than I do. But I would almost average it once a week.
But can I ask a question following that? Let me be more clear, I guess, on the question. How many times do you find yourself as the village or find customers in the village digging up the road to do that repair? Now, you might get called because we've got a complaint on a blocked line, but how many times in your time with Georgetown have you had to dig up the street to fix somebody's line?
Oh, we haven't dug up anyone's line to fix it for them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it don't happen that often.
I mean, other people have, we just haven't because we have this ordinance in place.
They don't dig up, so
Yeah, but
how many
how-
times have you roughly, do you see a month that somebody has to dig up the street?
I haven't seen a lot of that being here.
Or a year?
I couldn't even tell you, Ryan. off the
Is
top
it-
of my head.
is it-
I could name 3 places that would, as soon as the ordinance was to change, if it weren't changed.
But they'd have to prove again that they jettered it, that they had a clean out there. That would have to all be done by the homeowner prior to us doing something. So I can't imagine them being able to just say, well, they passed that ordinance, so we're gonna want our line dug up. If it's not backed up, and you can clearly see that by the clean out that they had to install for you to prove that, then I don't see where they would just be able to say, hey, we've changed the ordinance, we wanna change it on. There's no logic.
Steps, there's obviously steps that they would have to take.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So if you max it out to that jetter, because that obviously, that guy, from what I understood, had to run it through there 3 times. It was quite a clog. Actually ended up charging her about double what was said, which is fine. I think that's justifiable before the town digs up the road. And she was very happy for that to turn out that way, that particular person. But how?
Yeah, I think we also wanna look at, whether we're gonna, what the requirements would be. Would they have to show that it's clear to the cutout? Would they have to show that they've tried to jet it? Would they have to show maybe that they ran a camera to see what the damage is before we set that? I don't know.
One of the things I would point out, right now, the way the ordinance reads, the homeowner is responsible. There's nothing in the ordinance that says, though, if this is that rare of an occasion, that you couldn't, as a council, decide to take responsibility for a situation. And what I'm thinking of is, if it was on the courthouse square, or what I'll call a delicate intersection, where you might have to close the road or something, you don't want necessarily a homeowner or their contractor taking it on. So the way the ordinance is right now, where it's the homeowner's responsibility, you do have some discretion as a council to say, well, we could decide to take responsibility on a case-by-case basis. Now, I know you said you don't always trust who's sitting up here to make that decision.
Right,
But I think it's important to note, as the ordinance is now, as a council, you could always take on that responsibility. I seriously doubt at the main intersection over here, if they had to dig under it, Travis would say, we're just gonna let any contractor close the road and go under, If it's a rural road where that, isn't necessarily as populated, maybe a road off of free soil or somewhere that's, not seeing the level of traffic that a main road would, I can easily see a contractor being able to manage that.
But it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be equally fair to every taxpayer in the town to say, okay, well, we can justify it over here because it's in an X, Y, and Z location, and then turn around over here and we can't because it's gonna cause conflict from somebody saying, well, why did they get theirs done and I didn't get mine done? I paid my taxes. I mean, truly, that's gotta be a thought there, right? I mean, that's why I say, if you take all them steps that Travis, his expectations as a supervisor over the plumbing and sewer department, water department, to that point, that should, I mean, there's nothing left that the homeowner could do other than dig the road up. And I don't think that it happens even once a year, that situation. So I don't think it's that dramatizing to the village as much as it would be somebody that lives hand fist to pay that.
If I could just throw this in there, and I'm on board with wanting to help homeowners and taxpayers and everything, but at the end of the day, you choose where you live. And these ordinances have been on file for however long.
A year or less.
And, so this is a new ordinance?
So this was just the actual writing of the ordinance.
Okay.
The policy has always been this. This has always been practice. That's been standard operating procedure
It was just
for as
clarified.
long as I've been here. It's just,
Okay.
we ran into so many gray areas where it was, since it was not documented, that every time we went to these customers and told them that, they were like, well, I'd love to see that in writing. I said, well, sorry, but we don't have it in writing.
Yeah, you know,
So
there was
we
something else
went through and done.
that we talked about that I think maybe is getting overlooked, but, you know, when you come into town and you're on a sanitary sewer system, you don't have the expense of pumping out your septic tank, you know, however many times that you have to do that. So there are pros and cons of sanitary sewer. And I think this is one expense that the property owner is currently responsible for, and it is rare. But they don't have those other expenses that go with having a septic tank.
So what does the group think here? Is this something you guys wanna dig further into? Is this something that you wanna put some discretionary measures behind? Is this something that you want to change? What are you guys thinking? Is this something you wanna leave alone?
I see what Bink's saying in the fact of, I buy a house that has sidewalks on every side of it, and I'm responsible for that versus a house that doesn't. You know, that's a good point, like, you do kind of pick where you live. But like you say, a lot of people, that's something you never think about. I've never thought about the what if scenario, so, I don't know. There's a lot of good points to every side of it here. And I agree, I mean, I don't think it's something that we do every day to where you're costing several thousands of dollars. Do agree that it needs to be as clear as it can be, but yeah, I'm definitely up to hear more things about it, but I mean, right now, what are we talking? You've made the language clear, right? Like, so there's a documentation file and an ordinance. So on the table now, is it just, are you saying that you want to bring up and add to it to say a certain thing? Is that
Well,
what
right
we're-
now, it clearly states, from what I understand, that the town's not responsible, the liability's on the homeowner. And I'd like to, I mean, again, I bet you we don't have one a year. I would be willing to bet if you went back in your paperwork and looked it up, there hadn't been one a year that they had to replace the main across the road. So it's not that often, and if it was 5 times a year, let's say, I don't think that would be that overwhelming of responsibility for the village to take on when it's just, I mean, it's the roads, it's the traffic, there's a lot that comes into that. And if they're out there taking care of that, yeah, it's gonna settle behind a little bit, I get that, on occasion. But I mean, there's all kinds of things that come up all the time, you know that in your job, I had
But
5 ways of Sunday.
What do we have? Do we have all the equipment to take this on? Or is it something to where we have to buy a jetter and we have to buy?
We're not responsible for jetting. See, that's the thing. In that ordinance, it should state that the customer has to go to the point of jetting it out. If it don't work there, they've got to be able to clearly show that there's a clean out right at the road, basically, and I would assume then would go in as needed. So if I had a problem at my home, I'd have to jet it out first or auger it out. If it didn't auger out, jet it out. If it didn't jet out, put a clean out in at the road, prove to the town that that's backed up, and then they would take it on. Basically, that's where you would be. The homeowner would be out between $400 or $500 at least in expense prior to getting to that road issue, if that makes sense. And that's just them jetting it. That's not, digging the line. It's probably more like $800, really, in reality. If they have a licensed plumber, wouldn't you think, getting to that point, $800?
Yeah,
By the time you dig up that line and put a clean out in and run an auger through it or run a jetter through it, I'm sure that their expense would be $750, $800 before it even got to the town.
Yeah, they would probably.
So in
I'm
Mike's
just asking-
scenario, he's saying to the legislation, he would want to add, homeowner has to do X, Y, and Z. If X, Y, and Z doesn't fix it, stop at the road, let the village deal with the road, and that's where we would come in. So
Right.
that's Mike's scenario. Somebody else, Travis.
I might also just add that there are other options other than just digging up the roadways as well.
Right, you can do that pipe.
There's plenty of companies that do trenchless repairs. So basically they shoot a liner inside of old pipe, which gives it essentially new pipe. As long as the structure itself is there, something to somewhat hold that liner together, it's basically getting new line.
Providing it ain't corroded.
Or if it's a clay pipe that has been busted down in the street somewhere, they can actually go in with a robot and it goes in and actually grouts that area. So trenchless repairs, that's also an option. It's not just everything has to be that way. But that would require more camera work as well.
A whole lot of money on the homeowner.
Is this something you guys want to do more research on? Is it something that you feel strongly one way or the other?
Is there a way to look at records of people who have actually had to dig up the road? I mean, Mike's saying he guarantees that it's only been less than 1 year. Is there a way to look back and say it's been X amount of times in this?
I'm not sure if we would be, I'm not sure I can answer that.
Well, they have to inspect everything, right? So they should have the record somewhere.
Should be a work order created.
So if there's a paper trail that we can follow to see, okay, is this,
But does it call it out on that inspection form, whether it was under the road or whether it was just on the property? Because I would still have to call them and have them inspected from the house to the road where I tied in at, right?
All of our newest inspection forms, we put the footage
Right.
of the links in the pipe that was inspected and replaced. So.
But back in the day, you didn't, and the big problem with that liner is that relining too, so I don't know.
but if it's been dug up, that part didn't be inspected, right? 'Cause I think if you go back, you have to inspect to say that they've repaired the road back to spec, right? So if we look back and it's 50, which it's not, but if it is, then we have a tougher discussion. Because then so we're looking at homeowners' money versus taxpayers' money at that point. So we gotta figure that out.
Well, and I think that you would find it hard to find that documentation. I just don't think you
Yeah, I'm not
find it.
sure. We'll look.
But I will say this, I've sat here now a little over 3 years, and in the 3 years I've sat here, and I know Kelly's been here a lot longer than I have, you would find this coming up in our meetings, would you not? If a customer was disgruntled about having to dig their street up, we would have heard about this before.
I know of one other incident. I know of one.
And it would stand out, you know what I'm saying? This is something that kind of stands out, I would think you
Of
would.
somebody that got to our meeting or to one of us, I know of one. And that's, I
Right.
mean, define a long time, but in a long time I know of one.
Right, so you see what I'm saying though, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it happens that often, but the one or two that it would affect in a 10-year period could be crippling for them compared to the village coming out and just taking that responsibility, once all them things were done. Like the jetter and the, you know, all the steps that you would wanna see them do before you guys did that. And I know that's more responsibility for you, I know you don't wanna do it, but
It's not that I don't agree to an extent, it's just looking at it from my point of view, I know I'm already maxed out pretty much as far as our manpower and the demands of our water system, on top of the collection system. We got 11 lift stations, 12 actually, that we check daily. A water tower that's in violation still. We got lucky enough to get a grant, so we're working on that. I mean, we've got a lot in our system. We got 35 miles of distribution water main. That's not including service line before the water meter. I mean, it's just, there's a lot. So I mean, you add more infrastructure on top of that as far as what's under the roadways, as laterals go. It's a lot more demand. It may not be 50 a year, but I can name two off the top of my head from this year. Crooked Creek and West State. Just off the top of my head.
So to where they had to dig up the road.
They did dig up the road, and those are the two that I expected. But, like I said, I'm sure it's not often, but it does happen.
I don't think that's 2 days worth of work though. I think you guys could go extreme. So I mean, it's not no different than if you had a busted line. We have things that come up and you guys unfortunately have to fix those issues as they come up, and that would just be kind of, I think, one of them issues that's.
Do we know how many streets have old clay, or like, let's look at the future, let's go in 20 years from now. Is this something we're gonna have to do on every street for everybody if we take this on?
Well, I mean, a good example would be, look at what most homeowners have done in the past, is you actually start from that line from the house to the roadway. And that was 12 years ago.
And that was clay, that was.
So, perfect example is most people will replace from their home up to the roadway at some point, especially if you get to 20 more years. So, now you've got lines that could be potentially 50, 60, 80, 100 now under the road. So most of them probably are now. So it's hard to
That's
say
my
when
only
you get into
fear,
20
is
years.
if we take that on from just an expense from now forever. And you're talking, no matter what, it's every house in the village, not every, but you know what I'm saying, every street that has a sewer on it.
The majority of sewer mains are going to be in the center of the roadway or off in one lane, whether it's the northbound, southbound, eastbound, westbound, whatever. It's going to be in the main.
Right. That's my only fear, is if we look at it as a whole for the future, you're looking at, you're gonna have to either hire more, maybe, or you have to have it done, so that means the village would have to pay every time.
Maybe that increase on the taxes of the people that we raised a few years back that's supposed to go to road repairs, that sits in the general fund, could be allocated to put back for that.
Well, we could still look at it as an individual base.
That's
You
the
know,
thing right now.
clarify it.
If that ordinance, right now, we have discretion in it as it sits now, is that right, Joe, what you said,
Well,
that we have?
It's not that it says you have discretion, you can always pass an ordinance that will give you the ability to take responsibility. Because right now, it says it's their responsibility.
So if we had something that we left in place but said that we have discretion, I mean, to Mike's point, if they've done A, B, C, and D, they've consulted Travis, and they say, hey, based on what everything, this is the best game plan, then that gives us a little bit of leeway without putting us on the hook, because I do agree with Kelly. I mean, I think this is gonna, I mean, especially in what you said, Travis, the longer this goes on, it's gonna be a problem, that stuff that isn't a new build, that, you know, has PVC lines, and you're talking the old glazed tile, I mean, after time, it's gonna break down. We're gonna see that, especially in I think in the more centralized part of town, because I'm assuming probably where the bulk majority of that stuff's at. So if we have that discretion, I don't know why we wouldn't just maybe pass an ordinance or, that gives us a little bit of discretion and look at these on a case by case as opposed to the potential of putting us on the hook for doing a lot more 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road would be my only concern with that. I mean, because I agree, I think we need to help if we can, but we don't want to put us on the hook to be responsible for everything too.
So whenever didn't they do like a restructuring or whatever, did that include the sewer system whenever they did that?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Like, was it,
You mean the
You know, the giant
infrastructure
packet that we
point
got?
to your,
Structure point, the CIP.
So that was just a system assessment. So that was not including any laterals. They did do some smoke testing with that CIP. So, I mean, the only thing that would find though is like downspouts and more of an I&I problem. So infiltration and inflow, which is like people tying in downspouts, basement drains, things like that. Those are some pumps. Excuse me. Those are considered illegal connections. And that's not just a Georgetown thing. That is EPA, plumbing, everything you can think of like that. It's just not. It's a legal connection. So illegal. Sorry.
so whenever, I don't know anything, so, whenever you like do like a sewer repair or something, like under the road, like whenever you guys have to do a sewer repair, like, are you repairing just that one thing down the road, or are you like repairing everything that connects to that little section under the road and then redoing the road?
So if we have to do a sewer repair, it's normally like either a failing joint. So then we would just cut that joint out and put in a new section of pipe. It's not something that we're replacing a full segment of pipe. It's just a repair to that section that busted or broken or whatever wrong with it.
Oh, no, I just think it'd be cool, even if you could even put in there that the customer was responsible for the materials that go under the road. I just think that that's a lot for the customer to pay to cut up the road. You're cutting this, an area this wide into the road, across the road, and then that's gotta be patched back in.
One small thing about that as well, not necessarily small, is a lot of our sewer mains, since we already probably, I'd say 80% gravity system, which everything's just gravity flowing. That means that a lot of our sewers are actually very deep in a lot of locations. Once they get beyond a certain depth, we step out. We have to hire a contractor ourselves. Just because, we've got 3 guys, safety requirements, like we don't bother digging that deep. We don't even have the overhead trench boxes to reach a certain depths. So we would call in a specialized crew that can do that. Main Street, for example, that sewer main's about 14, 15 feet deep to the top of the sewer main. So you would need to dig that at least 18 feet deep or so, give or take. We don't have the equipment to dig that. That's something that was put in with Traco, not a mini excavator. So, just a little something to add there, because if say somebody on Main Street or another deep area does have a problem, that's going to be something that even if we are responsible, we're going to be contracting out. And I can tell you from the last one that was quoted to me, that was at that depth, it was $16,000.
That was all in total repair.
But that was the extreme too situation, right?
Yeah, that's why I said.
It's like the ones on
it's
Lincoln,
very
they can't be 2 foot.
Right, and that's why I said, yeah, it was just an extreme case, it's very deep, but that's the majority of Main Street as well, so that's why I just wanted to point that out. And there's a lot of other sewer mains that are at that depth as well. Not all of them, but there's quite a few.
what are you guys thinking? Again, is this something you guys want to further research? You want to instruct some action today? What are you thinking?
We could just revisit it in January, because we have no current issue that's pending in the city.
Right.
like that, and still knowing, just like this last situation, that our administrator does have some discretion in helping in this situation, which in this last one, he was able to work with a local vendor to get this resolved.
And again, I think we could I think we should revisit it, but I think let's keep in mind, we could still do it like we did a sidewalk, we could do it up to a certain amount, so it could be, in that situation where you're talking about, it's gonna be 16 grand, right? So you could set a cap on that, like we do a sidewalk, it'll be X amount up to, you know, solid, you know, a different dollar amount. But, yeah, I say we revisit it.
So our next meeting, which would be in January, would also be, it would be a work session. It probably would be a true work session, where this one is kind of a 2 meetings in one, if you will, just because of the holiday month. So we could add that to the agenda in January. In the meantime, Travis has done a lot of research based on what other jurisdictions do, how they do it for their cities and villages. So if you guys want any of that, you could just reach out to him, he can provide that, and or you could continue to work through Travis to get additional facts, if there's anything else to be found, and then putting some ideas behind it, and at the next meeting, maybe we come to the conclusion, like, this is something we want to tackle, this is something we want to leave alone with the discretion that we already have in place. I hope that's something that we could kind of look to do at the next meeting.
Yeah, and we'll certainly look and see what kind of data that we have for historical, that we could pull off of work orders.
And if you find that, could you share that with the group?
Yeah, we can send that out.
Anything else you guys specifically want from Travis for the next discussion? And Travis, if you can make the next meeting, that would be great. If you can't, we completely understand. So, all right, we absolutely appreciate your time and your team. You guys work very hard for us. And I know it's late. You probably get up pretty early in the morning, so thank you.
All
You're
right,
more than
thank you.
welcome to leave.
Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, guys, next on the list, we are down to item number 5, and we do need to go into an executive session, but in order to do that, I need somebody to read that and make a motion.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the compensation of a public employee, and 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes.
Councilmember Campbell has properly made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Mays. Roll call, please.
Campbell,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Barnhart,
Yes.
Bobby,
Yes.
Hunter.
Yes. All right, motion passes, guys. We want,